In the autumn of 1888, the gas-lit streets of Whitechapel, a poverty-stricken district in London's East End, became the hunting ground of a killer whose name would echo through history. London was the world's largest city, yet also one of its most divided, where wealth and power stood only streets away from desperation, overcrowding, and disease. Whitechapel was a place of extreme hardship, filled with lodging houses, alcohol abuse, unemployment, and women forced into prostitution just to survive. It was here, in the narrow alleys and fog-covered streets, that a murderer emerged. A figure the newspapers would soon name Jack the Ripper. The crimes were unlike anything Victorian England had ever seen. They were brutal, calculated, and shockingly intimate. Women were found murdered in the early hours of the morning, their throats slashed, their bodies mutilated with surgical precision. Fear spread rapidly, gripping the city and overwhelming the police. The killer struck swiftly, vanished into the night, and left behind no clear identity, only terror. While many murders were investigated during that period, historians generally agree on 5 canonical victims, all murdered between August and November 1888. These women, Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly, were poor, vulnerable, and living on the margins of society. Each killing escalated in brutality, suggesting a growing confidence and compulsion in the killer. The victims were typically attacked in secluded outdoor spaces or small rooms, where the killer had time to act without interruption. The consistent method, throat cutting followed by abdominal mutilation, suggested someone who understood anatomy, or at least had experience with knives. The final victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was mutilated so severely that even hardened police officers were shaken by the scene, marking one of the most horrific crime scenes in British history. Jack the Ripper's killings were marked by speed, silence, and savagery. The victims' throats were cut from left to right, likely rendering them unconscious almost immediately. What followed was methodical mutilation. Organs removed, faces disfigured, bodies posed. In some cases, internal organs were taken entirely, leading to speculation that the killer had medical training or worked in a profession involving anatomy, such as a butcher or surgeon. The murders almost always occurred late at night or in the early hours of the morning, suggesting the killer knew the rhythms of the streets and how to avoid detection. Despite the presence of police patrols, the killer was never caught in the act, disappearing into the maze of alleys that defined Whitechapel. As panic gripped London, police and newspapers began receiving taunting letters, allegedly from the killer himself. One letter, signed Jack the Ripper, introduced the name that would become infamous worldwide. Another letter, known as the From Hell letter, included a preserved human kidney believed to belong to one of the victims. Whether the letters were genuine or hoaxes remains debated to this day. However, they played a massive role in fueling public hysteria. Newspapers printed the letters in full, turning the killer into a dark celebrity and intensifying fear across Britain. The idea that the murderer was mocking authorities added another layer of humiliation and terror to an already overwhelmed police force. The Metropolitan Police faced enormous criticism. Victorian forensic science was primitive. There were no fingerprints, DNA testing, or modern profiling techniques. Crime scenes were contaminated by crowds, poorly secured, and often investigated hours after the murders occurred. Witnesses provided conflicting descriptions, many unreliable due to fear, alcohol, or poor lighting. Public confidence in law enforcement collapsed, Vigilante groups formed. Political pressure mounted. Anti-Semitic tensions rose when rumors spread that the killer might be a foreigner or Jewish immigrant, further destabilizing the district. Despite intense investigations, surveillance, and thousands of interviews, the police never identified the killer. Just as suddenly as the murders began, they stopped. After November 1888, no further canonical killings occurred. The reason remains unknown. Some believe the killer died, was imprisoned for another crime, or was institutionalized. Others think he fled London or simply lost the urge to kill. The lack of closure only deepened the mystery. Without an arrest, trial, or confession, Jack the Ripper faded into legend, becoming less a man and more a symbol of fear, violence, and the unknown. Over the past century, dozens of suspects have been proposed. Doctors, artists, royalty, immigrants, and even members of the British elite. Names such as Montague Druitt, Aaron Kosminski, Walter Sickert, and others have been studied endlessly. Some modern researchers have applied DNA analysis to old evidence, but results remain inconclusive and controversial. Every theory carries flaws. Evidence is circumstantial, records incomplete, and much of the original material lost or destroyed. The truth remains buried in history. Jack the Ripper became the world's most infamous serial killer, inspiring countless books, films, documentaries, and academic studies. His crimes helped shape modern criminology, profiling, and forensic investigation. More than a century later, the case continues to fascinate because it represents something deeply unsettling. The idea that a killer could operate in plain sight, taunt authorities, and vanish without consequence. Jack the Ripper was never just a murderer. He was a product of his time, a time of inequality, neglect, and social decay. His victims were forgotten women, ignored by society until their deaths shocked the world. And perhaps that is the greatest tragedy of all, that their lives mattered only after they were brutally taken. More than 130 years later, Jack the Ripper remains unidentified. His shadow still lingers over Whitechapel, over criminology, and over the collective imagination of the world. Each generation revisits the case, hoping that new technology or forgotten evidence might finally reveal the truth. But perhaps some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved. Not because answers don't exist, but because history has erased them. If you want more deep dive historical true crime, unsolved serial killer cases, and dark investigative documentaries, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. Because some stories don't end with justice, they end with questions.